Hello everyone, I am Borb and I'm going to talk to you about my little game called EMUUROM, and I will have a presentation about the game using a fantasy console for serious game dev. You know that I'm serious because I have a t-shirt of the game already. So let's see. I'll first show you what this talk will consist of. We first talk about the game itself. What is it even? What does it mean? And then the technology behind the game, the fantasy console that I used for creating this game. And then that said serious game dev. How did EMUUROM come to be and how has the development went. But before we jump into the presentation proper, I have a trailer of the game and I would like to show it to you. So let's go to that. That's it. So that's a bit of a glimpse to the world of EMUUROM. Let's then talk about it a bit. But before that, we need to grab this scanner. Yeah, now we have our tools that we need for this presentation, and let's talk about EMUUROM. So, as I said, I am Borb. I'm an Oulu-based indie dev, born in the mythical land of Savo. And currently I'm a programming educator at Bootti Oy. And before that I thought that I wanted to be a physicist. But really I just wanted to make video games. Because I've been making video games since I was 12 years old. And I've participated in 20-ish game jams and created 40 mostly tiny games. And now I'm making EMUUROM, my first commercial game. And you can wishlist it right now. It's on Steam. So what is EMUUROM? It's a non-violent creature scanning exploration platformer, aka a Metroidvania, at least in loose terms. And it's been very heavily inspired by the nature and culture and the dialect of my homeland of Savo. And I will even create a full Savo translation if that's something that you might care about. Let's then go forward. So, EMUUROM, that's a strange name for a game, right? Let's break it down. First off, emu, it means an ancestral mother. It's some sort of spirit entity in Finnic mythologies. For instance, there are Hongatar, Tapiotar, Kytöläinen, and those kind of things that I was inspired by for the development of this game. And the other part is ROM, read-only memory, ROM. And in this context, it means a video game cartridge, the term that was used for retro games, at least. So when you combine those both, we get EMUUROM, Those are, for instance, that little frog there, Konnampia. That's one of them. They are ancient forest sprites that populate the world of Emulehto. Lehto means grove in Finnish. So here we have these little creatures, those voekukkas up top, they are also emuuroms. So those are the creatures that are very heavily featured in this game. Let's then talk about like what kind of game this is. Like every game designer, I had to do some design choices for the game. Like what kind of game does it want to be? And first off, I wanted it to be non-violent. So instead of, for instance, killing the cute creatures, we study them. And another part is exploration. There's a world of Emulehto that we want to explore and feel the joy of discovery. And for that, I don't want to handhold the player too much. I want them to find it themselves. I don't want to spoil the fun in any way. And thirdly, I wanted to have some sort of systemic interaction. Same rules apply to everyone. When I jump on this voekukkas, okay. And demo effect. I tried to show you that that worm that just went away, that jumps on top of those voekukkas with the same rule set as the player, but well, this is what happens sometimes in EMUUROM. Because this systemic interaction design can lead to surprising scenarios. Now there it's coming back, but we can't get it back to the voekukkas, so I guess we are good, and let's go further to the next topic. So, about the gameplay itself. This is some sort of puzzle game. Every room in EMUUROM is one kind of a puzzle, or multiple overlapping puzzles. You just didn't realize it yet. And the main idea is that you are solving the question, how do I get from here to there? So we need to find out a way, how can we go forward? We need to learn how we can read the room, so to speak, and learn how can we use the powers of EMUUROM for our advantage. And for that, we have this, the scanner, the main mechanic of the game that we are using to figure out things about the world. And here when we scan this cloud, it says that cloud steers make flowers grow. So we can then go to the other cloud here and scan it. Okay, it rains and it indeed made the flowers grow, and now we can jump on top of it and go forward. That's the main gameplay thing in EMUUROM that happens in every room in some kind of way. And you can also use the scanner to navigate in some dark caves and look where are the walls again. So it's a kind of a versatile tool that you can use for exploration. But that's about EMUUROM. Let's then talk about the fantasy console, the technology that I was using for this game, because it influenced what kind of game EMUUROM became very heavily. So, what are fantasy consoles even? They are tiny retro-style game engines that have some artificial limitations. Maybe you could call even Bitsy, that was featured earlier, some sort of fantasy console, but usually fantasy consoles involve more coding. The most famous of fantasy consoles is Pico 8, that was mentioned earlier as well. That's the one everyone knows if they know any fantasy console. It was created by Lexaloff. It's quite cheap and has a huge community with it. Its biggest claim to fame was that the prototype of Celeste, an indie hit from few years back, was created with. But this is not created with Pico 8. This is created with TIC80. It's an open source fantasy computer. It's free, but there's also a paid version with some extra features. And it was originally created by Nesbox or Vadim Grigoruk. And even these slides that you are watching now, they were created with TIC80. We are even inside the EMUUROM game right now. And TIC80 has many built-in editors. I can showcase them quickly. Let's go to sprite editor first. This is where you see how the graphics are made. You just draw some pixels here, and then with that you can create maps. Here you can see the, oops, no you can't. Here you can see the presentation slides as a map in the map editor. And the code editor, yeah, it exists. You can maybe use it. There's not much pixels to see much of code here, but you can still create games, tiny games with it. And there's also a sound effects editor and a music editor that you can create chiptunes with. Let's then go back to the game or presentation. I started using TIC80 by a friend's suggestion. Thanks Verisoftwares for that. It has been really fun to use this console for making games. This has influenced my design of EMUUROM quite a lot. Most importantly, the scope of the game in general, because you can't create very huge games with TIC80. The map editor only has 64 rooms in the basic version, so that's it, that's all you get. And if you're making a Metroidvania or some sort of open world platformer, you can't grow the world organically into all kinds of directions that you would like to. You have to use those 64 rooms, and that's it. So that has led, at least on my part, to very dense level design. There are many things going on in every room. And another thing has been that in TIC80, the only controls that you have in a standard controller, you can use A, B, X, Y, and the D-pad. That's it. So this has led to kind of more with less interactions, where I try to really use these buttons as well as I could. And thirdly, the fact that I'm creating a game inside a virtual console, it kind of provided a meta-narrative for EMUUROM, because the game itself is set inside a computer as well. And this TIC80 has many limitations in it. Gamedev, as you might know, it is full of tiny decisions that you have to make when you're creating a game. And I think it's nice that you can let the engine make some of them for you. For instance, the color palette you can see here on the right, all those 16 colors that I have. You can change it if you want to, but you only get 16. And there's not much in the resolution as well. It's quite small. And for the chiptune music, you only get 4 channels, not more. And in the graphics memory, there's only 512 sprites. For instance, that bear down there, when I put it walking or running, it already uses 16 of those 8x8 sprites. So there's not a lot on that front as well. But that has led to me using, for instance, palette swapping. Here you have these 2 little snails. They are basically regional variants of the same creature. I just change the colors and get some more variety on the world. But there's also the ugly part. Sometimes limitations are, well, just that, limitations. Even though they do breed creativity, I think so. But sometimes they just, well, limit. For instance, if I want to make any GPU shader effects, no, that's not possible. If I want to add Steam achievements, well, no one has done those. I guess it could be possible, but no idea how. And porting to consoles, send help. Like literally send help. If you know how to port things into consoles, there's my email back. I would like to have EMUUROM on consoles as well, but don't know how to do it. And another thing, if I want to translate the game into non-Latin letters, well, those extra characters are going to eat up my precious graphics memory. But that hasn't stopped me from trying. And in general, what kind of advantages have I gained from using TIC80 instead of some like a more fully featured game engine? There's a community support. There are really nice people involved in the community. It's open source, which means that engine issues are generally fixable. And there's no compile time. If I edit some code in EMUUROM, I can see the changes immediately. And build time for Windows, Linux, and Mac, it's less than 10 seconds, so I can create a new build very fast. It's like new Windows build, it's less than 2 megabytes, so it almost fits inside a diskette. So these games are really tiny. I like that. So, why TIC80? For me, it's the sweet spot between control and freedom. There's really small set of functions. It's possible for one person to learn completely, which has led to some sort of game dev nirvana for me. Instead of having to keep on learning the tools, I can just focus on what I want to do, making games. So, and for me, the fantasy in fantasy console is that computers these days, they are awfully complicated. So let's have a simple computer instead and work on that. And that's it about TIC80. Let's then talk about that serious game dev. So, first off, about the history of EMUUROM. It was originally, like many indie games these days, a jam game. I participated in the Fantasy Console Jam 3 in February of 2018 and created a game called Mix Masks. It's still on my itch.io page if you want to check it out. It was barely finished, but I still saw some potential for a longer game. It was a mask collecting game with a time limit. I basically discarded both ideas after the jam. You don't have any of those in EMUUROM today. So it's a good reminder to remember to kill your darlings. Even if you like some ideas, if it doesn't serve the gameplay, like the time limit certainly didn't, just move on. So, and after 4 years of development as a hobbyist, it's now about 90% done. So only another 90% left. And it has about 5 hours of gameplay. So it's already the biggest thing I have ever created. But it's still not ready after 4 years, even though this was supposed to be a tiny game. And why is that? Because I took some creative risks in this game. So let's list them. This game was many firsts for me. It was my first game in a somewhat planned series of games. It was my first Metroidvania, my first puzzle game, and my first commercial game. Maybe not a good idea to have that many firsts. And it's also the first TIC80 game on Steam. So we are treading on new ground here. So I have to say about this, if you want to ship a game, play to your strengths instead of trying to invent every wheel. But if you do happen to do something ridiculous, you might get to give a talk about it. So it's not completely bad. Let's then see, who do we have here? Let's scan them. Oh, it's a naysayer. Ilves says, if you had a team, the game would be already done though. Yeah, I have heard this quite many times. I've been doing this game myself. Many people have asked me, why don't you have a team? Well, I guess I just like all aspects of game dev. I like creating art, music, web pages, or even PDF manuals for my games. I just like tinkering with all kinds of those. And this is how I've made games since always, since I was 12. And I like doing things on my own pace. I don't mind that it has taken me 4 years. I guess I'm also a bit of a hermit. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't want to work on a team someday. But I have a more important point with this solo dev than my own reasonings for it. Because I believe strongly that solo dev, making games on your own, it's a myth, a harmful myth even. Because very often solo devs aren't as solo as advertised. Because it takes a village to make a game. And that has been the case for me as well. So I would like to thank some people that have been involved in this project. Thanks to playtesters like Piotr's, EMUUROM doesn't just plain suck. Because I myself, I'm very blind to my own game. I make it too difficult to play, and I need playtesters to make it actually playable. And thanks to Siir back home, I don't polish unnecessary details for too long. I need a producer for that. And thanks to everyone who has given me feedback, supported the game, or even just wanted to hear me ramble. You make all this worth it. So, thank you, and if you are interested in the game, wishlist EMUUROM.
Thank you, Borb. That's so lovely. I'm gonna take a step here. Question and answers time. So, if audience has any questions, there's a mic coming up to your row. Just raise your hand. But I have one from students before this lecture. Is that, I don't know if you think about the next game already, but is it going to be TIC80 game or something else?
It's going to be a TIC80 game as well. Because I have now the engine and all the mechanics. I'm going to milk it as much as I can. I'm planning to do 2 sequels on TIC80 and then move into some bigger engines.
Yeah. How about Steam work? So you said that it's the first TIC80 game on Steam.
Yeah.
Is there any hurdles on that, or how does that work?
Actually, because the game is so small, that has made the Steam process very much easier. Because I haven't had to learn how the Steam pipe works. How do you use those command line tools to upload games into Steam? I can just go to the Steamworks website and upload it as a zip. That's it.
That's it, very easy. There is one question from the audience, so let's get the mic there. There we go.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious about what you would say is the biggest limitation of working with TIC80. I know you said something about the Steam achievements, but what else was there?
Well, I guess the porting part, if you are going that far with a TIC80 game, but even for tiny games, I think the biggest limitation is the amount of music that you can have. In the free version, you can only have 8 tracks of music. So that's not very much if you want to do like very music-heavy game. But otherwise, like I'm using a pro version, the $10 or $15 one, I don't remember. It has 8 times the size for music, sprites, maps, and even code. So that has been more than enough for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. How about the community of TIC80? Like how does that work? If you have a problem, do you put it on Discord or forums? Or?
There's a very active TIC80 Discord. There's also Fantasy Consoles Discord in general, where there's a small TIC80 community as well. And there's also a Telegram channel as well. So there are many ways to interact with the community.
Yeah, so you're not alone. Okay, thank you, Borb, for your fantastic talk, and good luck for your game. I'm certainly going to wishlist it now, and thank you.
If you liked.